Filipino fans made their way to catch the Pinay tennis phenom in action.
I've been coming to this tournament for 10 years. So I'm excited that we finally have a Filipino here again.
I got a selfie with her, and also this is my first ever tennis tournament ever. So I'm excited, this is special.
Filipina tennis star Alex Eala takes center stage at the BNP Paribas Tennis Paradise in Indian Wells. And of course, Filipino fans turn out in full force to cheer her.
Something remarkable is happening ahead of the Stuttgart Open, and the tennis world is paying very close attention. Markus Günthardt, the tournament director of the Porsche Tennis Grand Prix in Stuttgart, has made a decision that is sending shockwaves through the entire WTA Tour. Alex Eala, the young Filipino tennis sensation who has been turning the sport completely upside down, will not be entering the Stuttgart Open through the qualifying rounds. Günthardt has placed her directly into the main draw. And once you understand everything that has been building around this player over the past year, you will understand clearly why this decision was not made overnight or on a whim. It was made because the evidence had become too overwhelming and too consistent to ignore any longer. To truly appreciate this moment, it helps to understand what actually goes through the mind of a tournament director when they make a call like this one. Günthardt has been running the Porsche Tennis Grand Prix for years and understands the business of professional tennis as well as almost anyone in the sport. He knows that Stuttgart is already one of the most prestigious events on the entire WTA calendar, a clay court tournament with deep history, genuine prestige, and a loyal and passionate fan base that has supported it for decades. He does not need to chase headlines or manufacture excitement. The event already has more than enough of both. But even a tournament with all of that behind it can feel the difference between a year where the entire world is watching and a year where it simply passes by without leaving a lasting mark. And Günthardt has been observing very carefully what happens every single time Alex Eala shows up somewhere. What he has seen has changed his entire way of thinking about this tournament and what it could become. Because here is the reality that Günthardt has been sitting with. Every tournament director who has fully embraced Eala, who has put her on the biggest court available and given her the main draw placement that her status genuinely deserves, has walked away from their event with results they had never seen before in the entire history of their tournament. That is not speculation or hopeful thinking. That is a documented and repeating pattern, and Günthardt is far too experienced and far too smart to look at that pattern and simply do nothing about it. Consider what happened at Indian Wells. The 2026 tournament will be talked about for years to come, not primarily because of who won or who lost, but because of what one single player did to the entire atmosphere and economy of that event. The moment Eala's first-round match was confirmed in the draw, fans flooded the ticketing platform with a level of demand so extreme that the system itself buckled under the pressure. Ticket prices rose to levels that nobody in the entire history of that tournament had ever witnessed. When everything was counted up, that single first-round match had generated $5 million in ticket sales alone. Not a final, not a semifinal, a first-round match. The phrase that came out of that moment, the Eala effect, is now spoken in every tournament office across the entire tour. Günthardt has heard it. He knows exactly what it means and what it represents for any event willing to fully commit to giving her the platform she deserves. But the Indian Wells story goes much deeper than the money alone. What it truly revealed was that Eala is not simply drawing tennis fans to these events. She is drawing people who had never previously considered attending a tennis match in their lives. People traveling from every corner of the globe with one single purpose, to be inside that stadium, to feel that energy, and to be part of something they sense is genuinely historic. When a sporting event begins pulling in that kind of audience, people who are coming not for the sport itself, but for the specific player and the meaning she carries with her, it stops being just a tennis tournament. It becomes a cultural moment, and Stuttgart now has the opportunity to be exactly that.
Grateful for all the support that's been coming my way, and it's really heartwarming to see that they really they make the effort and they take the time to come out and to support, and it makes the experience for the player.
Then there is what happened in Austria when Eala was drawn to face Julia Graber at the Ladies' Linz Open. 90% of the tickets for that match were purchased not by Austrian fans coming out to support their home player, but by Eala supporters who had coordinated across national borders specifically to fill that stadium for her. Grabber, competing on her own home soil in front of her own home crowd, walked onto that court effectively as the away player. The atmosphere had been completely transformed by the sheer organizational power and dedication of Eala's fan base, and it happened before a single ball had even been struck. Tournament director Sandra Reichel understood immediately and without any doubt what she had on her hands. She committed publicly to placing Eala on the biggest court the venue had available, and she confirmed that she would personally welcome Eala to the tournament. She stated that the atmosphere surrounding the event would be unlike anything the Ladies' Linz Open had witnessed in its entire 35-year history. That was not a casual comment from someone caught up in the excitement of the moment. It was the considered judgment of an experienced tournament director who had seen the numbers, felt the energy, and understood the scale of what was happening around this one player. Gard has read every word of that story from Austria, and he has sat with it carefully, asking himself what it means for Stuttgart, a tournament that already possesses the infrastructure, the prestige, and the history to take everything Eala brings and amplify it to an even greater level.
And
Yeah.
it's great always to welcome new players and newcomers and players who will own the future, I would say. So it's great, to welcome Alexandra here in Linz in this special year, and it's also our
Yes.
first time.
And then there is what happened in Miami. James Blake did not wait for the wave to reach him. He placed Eala on center court from the start and spoke openly and directly about what her presence would mean for the event. He noted that her appeal had grown well beyond the traditional tennis audience, bringing in fans from across Asia, Europe, and North America who were not regular tennis followers and would not otherwise have been at the tournament at all. That kind of audience expansion cannot be manufactured by any marketing budget, no matter how large. It only comes from a player who means something to people on a level that goes far beyond sport. Blake predicted that Miami would break revenue records because of her presence, and Gard has taken careful note of every single word Blake said. Now here is what makes Gard's decision even more layered and thoughtful than it might first appear. Stuttgart is a clay court tournament, and clay is a surface that demands physical freshness, tactical sharpness, and complete mental preparation from any player who wants to compete at their best on it. Being forced to grind through qualifying rounds can strip a player of exactly those things before the main draw has even begun. By placing Eala directly into the main draw, Gard is not simply making a commercial decision driven by ticket sales and revenue projections. He is making a genuine sporting decision as well. He wants Eala on the clay at her absolute best from the very first round, because he has seen what she is capable of when those conditions are in place, and he wants Stuttgart to be the stage where that version of her gets to perform in front of the world. There's also the powerful lesson from what happened at tournaments that did not fully embrace Eala when they had the chance. At the Australian Open, she was placed on smaller courts despite the enormous and well-documented demand from her fan base. The result was chaos. Hundreds of thousands of fans stood in endless queues, and many of them never made it inside to see her play at all. But rather than diminishing her appeal or cooling the enthusiasm of her supporters, that failure only made everything stronger. Her fans became more galvanized and more determined, and the tournaments that had made smarter and more forward-thinking decisions about how to handle her presence reaped the rewards of that wisdom. The Australian Open's misjudgments became a cautionary tale that spread across the entire sport. Gard has absolutely no intention of allowing Stuttgart to become the next chapter in that same cautionary tale. And beyond the crowds and the commercial logic, there's the matter of what the players themselves have been saying. Jessica Pegula, one of the most experienced and battle-hardened competitors on the WTA Tour, faced Eala at the Miami Open and described the atmosphere surrounding that match as something she had never encountered in her entire professional career. The fans were not simply spectators, sitting and watching from a distance. They were participants, fully and emotionally involved in every single point. every rally drew a reaction that Pegula described as insane, a level of passion and collective energy that no other player on the tour was generating anywhere, whether at the Australian Open, in Dubai, or in Miami. When a player of Pegula's experience and standing says she has never felt anything like that before in her career, the entire tour stops and takes notice. And Novak Djokovic, a man whose words carry the full weight and authority of the sport behind them, called Eala the greatest tennis player the Philippines has ever produced. That is not a casual or throwaway statement offered in passing. That is a deliberate and considered statement from someone who understands greatness at its most fundamental level and does not use words like that lightly. Gard has heard all of this. He has studied the crowds, read the figures, and watched tournament after tournament be transformed by the simple decision to put Eala exactly where she belongs and give her the platform her status demands. Placing her in qualifying would have been an act of willful blindness from a tournament that should know better. It would have been Stuttgart looking at $5 million in first-round ticket revenue from Indian Wells and deciding to make their own fans wait. It would have been looking at what Reichel did in Linz and what Blake did in Miami and consciously choosing to do the opposite. The evidence of the entire 2026 season makes that choice completely indefensible for any tournament director paying attention. Instead, Gard has recognized something that the most forward-thinking people in the sport have already understood for some time. Having Alex Eala in the main draw is not simply good for her career and her ranking, it is transformative for the event itself. The people coming through Stuttgart's gates on the days she plays will include many who have never watched a WTA match before in their lives. The atmosphere will be something the Porsche Tennis Grand Prix has not experienced before, and all of it begins with this one decision. The decision to look at Alex Eala and say clearly and without hesitation that she is not a qualifier, she is a main draw player. She is someone the world comes to watch. The Eala effect has arrived in Stuttgart, and under Markus Gard's watch, the tournament is ready for every single moment of it. What do you think about Gard's decision to place Eala directly into the Stuttgart main draw? Is this purely a business move, or do the sporting reasons carry equal weight? Could Stuttgart become the next Indian Wells moment for women's tennis? And with director after director across the tour making this same call, is the WTA itself falling behind and truly recognizing what Eala means for the future of the sport? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this conversation is only getting bigger.